What is up? I know I've leaned into the bad juju again by not testing the stream fidelity beforehand, not testing the audio fidelity, but that's probably fine. Things have been going well for several streams in a row. I have no reason to believe that things will derail now. Although, as I say that, I'm very aware that this could be a bad omen. Or maybe not. I just checked the stream audio, and it seems that all is going well there. My bitrate is holding steady. Maybe I'm just him. Maybe that's what's up. Anyway, I'm playing more Retro Rewind today. I still do want to play CTGP again at some point or another. I want to go back to that now with the understanding that it's like a Kaizo pack more than anything. Let me check the Discord announcements. Retro Rewind announcements. Yep, okay. No updates since earlier this month. Very cool. I shall continue. And I'll open my notepad document as well. Yay. Also, apparently rewards are enabled. Oh, yeah. Rewards like, if you sub, you get a little sub badge. It's like a Clone Trooper helmet. I really like it. In fact, I actually might want to switch some of them around. I don't know exactly how I would do that. I probably have to find this folder where I stored all of those sub badges. But there is a Clone Trooper helmet that I really like, and I want to be the badge for people who have subscribed the longest. And then the second longest one. Also, I obviously like all of the custom Clone Troopers designs that I've done. Maybe one of these days, if my stream gets bigger, I'll do like some pixel art live streams or whatever. But, I want to switch those two around because I think my favorite one would be more deserving of like the whole, yeah, you subscribe the longest, so you get the cool Clone Trooper helmet. Oh, dude, it's the fucking question from Batman. Got a question mark on his face. How did he do that? Also, why am I not questioning this? How did he do that? The volcano. Great track. Hex, what do you got going on? Ah, okay, they're going to the lap too. So I do have a little bit of room to talk about some of the stuff that I want to talk about this stream. And as the title of the stream might indicate, and as the Discord message I wrote definitely indicates, this is going to be a little bit more of a lightweight stream, at least by my stream standards, right? Usually on the streams that are comparatively not lightweight, I talk about the fate of entire countries and like political movements that could imply mass death, i.e., Israel in the Middle East. I talk about the implications of fascism in the United States, in whatever country it is rising. And there's, politics is always going to entail some of that. But this time, what I have is mostly like not that stuff. Still pertains to politics, but it doesn't directly pertain to, oh yeah, millions will die as a result of this, right? Which I think is good for entertainment purposes, Did they make it? They did. Don't fall off. Okay. I'm just lagging. First up, let's actually start with the one thing that isn't politics, and that is that I got a new monitor. Uh, my old monitor, it's the same model, same exact model of my old monitor, but my old one had been giving me grief because it was definitely on the end of its lifespan. There were a bunch of lines, vertical lines on the right side of the screen, and they were actually starting to appear on the left as well. That were all like dead pixels. You know, like it was the pixels were, they could be activated. Like they weren't. I guess they weren't literally like broken, or I guess, you know, maybe they would be literally broken, but they weren't completely non-functioning. When the computer screen turned on, the pixels would also activate. You know, there was light being emitted by these pixels, but the light wouldn't change. It would remain a solid color. So you get this weird, like, nope, you get this weird, like, quasi-scanline looking effect, but only on the right side of the screen for the most part. And I knew that, like, eventually that was going to spell death for my monitor, because it was, like I said, it was spreading to the left side, and I also, you know, I knew that it wasn't going to just stay like that. Beyond just spreading to the left side of the screen, it had actually grown a bit. It was, lately, I can tell that it had been, like, a lot bigger. That spot of dead pixels had been a lot bigger than it was like a couple months ago, which was not good, not ideal, anyways. It was a very awkward spot to use that mushroom, but I had to do it. But anyways, I did get the new monitor. It came in the mail the day before yesterday. I set it up yesterday. And so now I have a nice clear picture, no dead pixels to be found on my first monitor, my primary monitor, that is. Three for three. I'm pretty good at this track. Wasn't great, but I have a big lead anyway, god dang it. My fingers didn't do what I wanted them to in that moment. I'm just gonna put this right here, throw this up. Alright. Very nice race on Dry Ruins. I did the sand hop 3 for 3, so I think that justifies my skill. That racing at the end was a little bit clunky. Nice. Average stream bit rate too high. Ah, you don't gotta worry about that. Don't worry about it. Preparing the race. Alright, now that I've gotten my obligatory dry ruins. Did I say dry desert? I mean dry ruins. I keep fucking getting those track names mixed up because they both start with dry. Dry ruins. Out of the way. I always like to pick that track. So now let's just all aboard the random train. Ooh, actually, I might want to pick N64 Mario Circuit. That track is super fun, too. Chaotic as hell. But loads of fun. I thought that was a red shell. Well, what? My stick is doing very bizarre things. I did not drift that way. Give me that. Haha. That was also not intentional. I don't know what is going on. Maybe it's because I haven't played this game in a little bit, in a couple of days. But my fingers are not quite doing what I want them to, and it is yielding some bizarre results. Okay. I'm cool with just hanging out in second for the time being. Or I can take first, or not. Like I say, at a mushroom. Art, I'm not throwing this at you. Want you to know that. You are my only protection from a blue shell right now, and I would rather that than being first. I get him? Yep. Okay. Also, anybody watching, take notes. This is how you succeed in Mario Kart. You want a nice, stable second place, because, you know, second is fine. First is great, but second is still fine. And more than anything, you just don't want to get blue shelled at the end. And staying in second eliminates the possibility of that. Especially if you're decently close behind with first. I don't even care, like, I'm prepared to just, yeah, like, sure. Go ahead, get first. Because I was safe that whole time. Nice. Ah. Oh, this is a nice short Reuters piece. Cool. Reuters always writes short stuff whenever it's a country that isn't the US. Unless it's Israel, in which case they have to write, like, so many paragraphs because, like, you have to fucking twist yourself into a pretzel with 1 billion words to justify the shit that Israel does. That's GCN, that's GBA, and 64. Mario Raceway, there it is. But on the subject, Reuters, there are elections happening in Canada right now. It is, but I thought it was going to be the federal elections, but those aren't happening until next year. It's just the provincial elections in British Columbia, which is, I believe that's the province where Vancouver is. So it's like, what is going on? This is laggy as hell. I don't know why this is happening. I don't think this is a function of my internet connection. My stream is perfectly stable, and the last couple races were just fine. I don't know what's going on. Okay. I guess I'm just gonna try to drive as well as I can. That's all I can do, really. Okay. But, yes, British Columbia elections, right above Washington State, just north of, Washington State on the, West Coast. They're having provincial elections, and, predictably, Trudeau's Liberal Party is getting blown the fuck out. You know, I think they've dropped to something like low double or even single digit support there. I'd have to double check the polling numbers to confirm that. But it's very much actually a contest between the Conservatives and the New Democratic Party, the NDP in Canada, which, you know, liberals, of course, but it's better than the, well, the party that bears the name Liberal. It's better than the Liberal Party, you know? Oh my god! I was not ready. What's up, player? Ah, fucking stream sniping, dumbass. Alright. I don't know what was going on there. That seemed like a more of like a server side issue, potentially. Anyways. Yeah, so the election is very tight between the NDP and the Conservative Party of Canada. And funnily enough, true to the Reuters article title, the election's actually too close to call yet, even with most of the votes in. They might have to look at the vote counts more closely, do potentially like a recount or something. You know, we'll see what all happens there. Right. Okay, the room split, I think. So in reporting from Ottawa, that is, from Reuters, the two main parties contesting an election in the Western Canadian province, yeah, okay, it is in the west, of British Columbia, were tied after most votes had been counted. Provisional results showed on Sunday. Hey, that's today. And it could be days before a winner emerges. The incumbent left-leaning NDP, New Democratic Party, in power for 7 years, had won 40 seats and was leading in six? Leading in 6 seats? Reuters, you should be more clear with what you mean there. While the right-leaning Conservative Party had won 40 and was leading in 5. 5 what? Oh, seats. Okay. Yeah. Again, Reuters, please use clearer language. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation said the result could depend on out-of-district votes and mail-in ballots, which is actually a recurring theme, it seems, for a lot of countries that are starting to take absentee voting more seriously. You know, both in the U.S. and Canada, mail-in votes are becoming more of a factor in each election because, you know, everybody can't get to the polls on the day of. Let me make it through here and then I can keep reading. Oh, oops. Yeah, okay, so the reason this is so hotly contested is because the majority in the province of British Columbia is determined by who has 47 seats. I believe it's like, there's something like 93 seats? Either 92 or 93 seats in the British Columbia parliament, like the regional parliament. So a majority would be determined by whoever has half plus 1, which would be, I guess, according to Reuters, 47. So who knows? Maybe the Conservatives will lose. That would be nice. In fact, I think it looks like if the parties just win like the seats where they're currently leading or where they're projected to win, so the NDP wins 6 of those seats and the Conservatives win 5. I think that means like the Conservatives can't really win the election because I think there's a couple of bit parties in that province. Those other remaining seats are not like toss-ups. I think they've already been like decided like, okay, yeah, such and such party that wasn't the Conservatives or the New Democratic Party won this seat. But like Canada has a more multi-party-esque system than the United States does. So there's like there's also, in addition to Liberal Party, Conservative Party, there's another slightly better Liberal Party. There's a Green Party. There is a Quebec Independence Party, and there's also like a crank libertarian style party. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to stop and dance. Commentating while racing is hard. I see you though. I appreciate the shout out there. Also, I think it was plus minus 0 for those people, and then I gained 15, which means the only person whose VR changed was a positive gain. Nice. I'm gonna vote for... Actually, no, I'm not gonna vote for Mario Raceway. That's only really good in a larger room. Mushroom Gorge. Conservatives benefited from voter fatigue with the NDP government, and they promised to scrap a long-standing tax on carbon emissions and clean fuel standard, and also expand the liquefied natural gas export industry. Wow, so they just want to fuck up the environment. Like, that's their whole platform. Great. Love my conservative party, whose only position is, yeah, let's let rich corpos get away with more and make the air quality worse. Like, sure, great. Eh. My ultimate move. That worked. I can't believe that worked. I think that was actually slower, but it was cool. And that's what matters. I don't want that banana. Give me a mushroom. It's still not a mushroom. Dang. Do I go for it again on lap 3? I think I do. I don't have a chance of, like, getting first or anything. I think it'd just be funny if I did this again. I didn't quite hit the right part of the mushroom, I think. I'm just shitposting, basically. Oh. Wow, that actually makes that a lot easier. So you don't have to aim for a particular part of the mushroom. I gonna stop again? No. Good. As God intended. I'm gonna throw this back here. Okay. -3, -4. I'll keep going, sure. Results could mirror that of the 2017 election, where the Green Party held the balance of power, and neither of the main parties won a majority. Then the Liberal Party won more seats, but the NDP took power after signing a deal with the Greens. That's pretty cool, I suppose. Look, again, the only parties that are currently active in Canada are either Liberal parties or Conservative or far-right parties. There isn't a meaningful socialist option, but, like, if you're looking at a Canadian voter ballot, you want to pick either the Greens or the NDP if they're available. Or if you're in Quebec, actually the Bloc Québécois. I actually looked at, since the, there's a projected, like, massive blowout in favor of Conservatives in basically every Canadian province except British Columbia and Quebec, I decided to take a look at, like, what is the Bloc Québécois, like, what do they support beyond just, like, Québécois independence? And they're actually not that bad of a political party. They're still liberals, but they're social democrats, which means they're on the better end of liberalism. It means they're liberals that like unions, kind of. Although since they have aspirations of Frenchness, they do hate Muslims a lot. And that's pretty cringe. But yeah, so you got the NDP and the Bloc Québécois and the Greens that are, like, real political parties for serious people. And then you have the Liberals, which are a fucking joke, because Trudeau just sits on his thumbs and, like, tries to shut down strikes all day. And then you have the Conservatives, who hate migrants and want to, like, I don't know, destroy the Canadian economy. So they can say, see, look, we got rid of all the brown people. Like, great, thank you. Who is this supposed to be for? Like, whose life is this supposed to improve? I mean, I know that's not the point, For anybody wondering if, if this was a question, like, anti-immigrant politics actually isn't about a supposed view of the world where you want to make people's lives better. Racism is a highly irrational ideology or a set of beliefs, and as are many other component parts of fascism, as well as fascism as a whole, because it prioritizes not the actual well-being of the in-group, but rather the suffering of the out-group. Thus, a lot of times fascists and conservatives will push for policies that make everybody, including the in-group, suffer, because it also makes the out-group suffer. You know? Like, this is the reason that you never see any white supremacists, like, earnestly arguing for social democratic and left-leaning reforms, because that would benefit the white race. Like, if you're actually approaching politics from a what benefits people perspective, just racially coded, like, what is good for white people in a political system, right? Like a hypothetical Richard Spencer-esque white supremacist, then you would be voting for liberal or socialist parties because the policies that they offer are more beneficial to what a white supremacist would consider the master race than conservative policymaking and fascist policymaking. But because white supremacists don't actually care, they don't vote for those parties. Like, they don't actually care about the culture of various ethnic groups that are under the umbrella that we would consider white. They don't care about the well-being of the white race. They just care about making brown people suffer. Like, that's it. And black people, I should say, as well. That's actually how, like, that's how a lot of these parties can gain ground with so little political substance to their name, right? Is because a lot of it is founded on insecurity and the need for people to see, I don't know, their enemies suffer or whatever. The cuckolding fetishism of the white man is not conducive to a good political platform, and I will just say that. This is a different version of Lena's Ice World than I'm used to, anyways. I think I don't know how I feel about this cave being being as dark as it is. You know, of course the track functions really well. It's purely an aesthetic consideration. I feel like it would be more true to the original if it had slidey road, but at the same time, I don't like slidey road, so, you know, we look past that. We don't worry about that too much. Okay, I hit the fucking wall there again. I didn't get the trick for some reason. Ow. If I hold this green, I should be fine. In before blue shell? Nah, I'm good. Okay. Yeah, okay. No clear winner. So we'll have to wait for a few days to see how that pans out. This is an interesting point in time in Canadian politics, because the Canadian Conservatives are basically just identical to American Conservatives, complete with the MAGA aesthetics. I wonder if they're going to try to challenge the validity of the election as a product of them not immediately winning. We saw this in 2020 in the United States when the election was taking longer to be decided because there were mail-in ballots that were coming in at a later point than you know, vote on the day of, and because, you know, votes take fucking time to count, especially when elections are decided by pretty narrow margins. The conservatives cried foul immediately because they don't actually care about democracy, but, like, to them that presented an opportunity, like, oh, if we successfully challenge the validity of this election, we could potentially, even after the popular vote has been decided against us, win the election anyway, right? The conservatives in America, they did this in the year 2000, and it actually succeeded. They incited riots, violent riots, to stop the counting of votes in the state of Florida. Florida was won by Al Gore. He won the popular vote there, but they stopped counting the votes they like called the election before all the votes were counted. So George Bush won the state of Florida while losing the popular vote there. And as a result, George Bush won the presidency. And so conservatives have been pulling increasingly from that playbook because, you know, they are much more fascistic now. But yeah, the point being, I wonder if the Canadian Conservative Party will do something similar. It's a very tight race between them and the NDP. The NDP seems like they have a more likely shot of winning than the Conservatives do, just based off of what limited information I have, because they made a deal with the Greens to have a coalition government, and then it seems like they would be in a similar position to do the same this time. I wonder if the Conservatives are going to try to do some chicanery to that effect. Oh well. I guess, you know, I can speculate all day long, but we'll have to wait and see. Is that going to hit somebody? No. Get that. Okay. Damn, I had a pretty big lead that whole time. Five? Can we get a room of 5 people? I would like that. Nope, still 4. Bowser's Castle. Okay. I also saw this morning, as I was reading the French newspaper, that Moldova is having like 2 votes at the same time. One is a presidential election, I think, and one is a referendum on, I think, joining the EU or something like that, which is interesting because Moldova has been historically, or not historically, but like recently subject to some Russian interference in their politics, as are like every country, obviously. Russia is very active in promoting fascism in other countries. But Moldova, it's been to such an extent that, you know, there was a little breakaway republic, the Transnistria. And as far as I know, conflicts are at a pretty low temperature at the moment. Somebody who's like more well-versed on Moldovan politics can fill me in there if that's not the case. But my understanding is that this conflict is not nearly at the same risk of exploding as the Ukrainian conflict was, you know, which resulted in the Ukraine war, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, you know. But yeah, that's happening in Moldova, and I think that, oddly enough, I feel like this is another instance where Russia's efforts would be like self-sabotage here. Because in trying to influence a certain country to have like a separatist movement and to be pulled away from the EU in such a way that Russia is known for, I think that their efforts may have had an opposite effect. This might be a smaller version of what we saw with Ukraine, where the moment that Russia invaded Ukraine, NATO immediately became more like tightly unified than it had ever been in the 21st century, because now they have a reason to exist again, which is opposing a geopolitically adversarial force in the form of Russia, who is like very militarily active on other states. I feel like with Moldova, Russia kind of shot themselves in the foot by planting, by influencing separatist movements, because now all the pro-Russia people have mostly, like the influential pro-Russia political factions have kind of left Moldova, if that makes sense. Like, they're not as influential. Granted, I could be overstating the case there, because the article did say that there's only one, like, liberal EU-aligned candidate, and then there's a number of conservatives running that are a little bit more Eurosceptic, you know? I don't know. It's just something to think about, because Russia, people are able to recognize that, oh, Russia is bad. Russia influencing other elections is bad. But I feel like there's a lack of critical understanding for why that's bad, right? Influencing another country's elections, in principle, is not necessarily a bad thing. For example, what if I don't know, what if there was like a flip of a coin and then Russia, instead of influencing countries to be anti-EU and more conservative and more pro like Russian fascism, instead was like, you know what if we influence this country's election so that it was more pro-socialist and more like pro-democracy, more pro like reforming the EU, so that they mostly talk about raising taxes on the rich and stuff like that. That would be good. That's an example of you could potentially say, like, yeah, election interference in this case would be a good thing, because it's like it's an example of like, oh, we're using our ability to influence the outcome of the election to try to make good things happen, right? Because it's kind of a constant in the modern world, where you have the internet, where countries are able to engage with the politics of other countries, where you have an international climate, election meddling that doesn't tread into straightforwardly like election rigging, whether good or bad, is going to happen, right? So it's almost like because it's such an essential component, it kind of loses its edge as a bad thing. That's not to say that it doesn't lean towards being bad, because the only people who really have the capital to do so are, well, the capital class, and they don't typically like good things. But yeah, the reason that, like, oh, Russian election interference is pretty bad is because they typically try to influence elections in the direction of conservatism and fascism, and distancing themselves from the European Union, which, while I don't have that many nice things to say about the EU, is bad from the perspective of the alternative. Like, it's either the EU or Russia, and out of the two, you would prefer to be part of the European bloc, even if there are a lot of problems with the EU structurally. And ideologically, too. But there's more of a capacity for change towards something positive there than there would be in the Russian geopolitical sphere. And that's why we always get concerned about this. Now, I know there's a lot of liberals that only get concerned about it because it's Russia and campism. And like, if the hypothetical snap of the fingers happened, and now Russia is a democracy, it is a democratic socialist state with strong unions and worker protections, worker control over the boards of companies and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure that, like, there are a number of liberals where if Russia still did the election interference, but they were like, yeah, we want workers to have a better share of the means of production, and we want countries to be more democratic, power to the workers' councils. If they were doing election interference like that, I think liberals would still think it was bad because it's Russia. But, that's what I wanted to get at, because I saw that in my newsfeed this morning. I'm just going to chuck this back. I don't need that. Alright. Oh, Ah, dang it. I was gonna go wide and let them go tight, but I guess I should have just stick to the etiquette that I'm usually familiar with, where, you know, I'm the big guy. I have a mega, or earlier I had a star, so I should go tight and then let them be like, okay, he's going tight. You know, I'll go wide. If that makes sense. Oh, don't mind if I do. Aqua, if you have a red shell, now would be a good time to throw it, probably. Yeah. Oh, dang. That was a good throw. I respect the attempt. Eh. Got him. I think that was a case of, like, it was too quick for them to really react. If they have a red shell, I'm pretty cooked. Okay, they didn't have one, so I win. Five players? The illustrious 5 players? Potentially? Oh! Say it ain't so. I don't know why I said that in a, like, more sultry tone, but I don't know. I think the punchline is delivered, and I gotta live with whatever toppings I put on top of it. Oh, wow. That was a really good angle. I actually didn't think that I would get it there for a second. Stop trying to do double shortcut, guys. We get it. You vape. Give me that. Thank you. Alright. Pretty good lap 1 so far. There's 5 players, so there can be bullets and POWs, but there can't be a shock. Which means anything that happens that could cause me to lose my star, I will have some warning for. So I gotta be careful where I want to use this. Oh, he's got reds. I'm in a pretty safe second place right now. I actually don't really know what to do with these green shells, so I'm just gonna probably get rid of them. Like this. And that. And I got more green shells, okay. Okay. I don't know if that blue shell's gonna hit him. Yeah. It's looking like not. Just glad it didn't go for me. Okay. Hey, who's ready for me to be proven right yet again about the things I've said about fascism and liberalism being very similar ideologies, and liberalism being the moderate wing of fascism, or alternatively, as I sometimes like to put it, fascism being the extremist wing of liberalism? Because there's a news article here that actually shows exactly an example of what I'm talking about. Contre-budget. du RN. It is in French. I will be doing my best to translate as I read. Contre-budget du RN. Le projet austéritaire, xénophobe et anti-écologique de l'extrême droite passé au crible. The counter budget of the RN, which is the French far-right party. The austerity project, the xenophobia project, and what is it? The anti-ecology, or I guess the project of austerity, xenophobia, and anti-ecology of the far right, passing. It says passer au crible, but crible translates to screen. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not well versed in idioms. One of the ways you can definitely tell that French is a second language of mine. So I'm assuming that means that like it's being discussed in some manner and it has advanced in some capacity in the legislature, possibly. But regardless, the point of the article I think is well communicated either way. That this is the budget counter proposal or the budget proposal of the far right. Now that there is a government, like a coalition government in France, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that because it like I said, I think it proves what I've said about fascism being the extremist wing of liberalism. You may notice the bit about austerity. This budget is an austerity spending bill, or rather, it is a bill that doesn't want to spend any money because that's kind of how austerity works, right? And the thing about that is that you might notice that is very similar to what liberals do. A lot of liberalism as an economic ideology is defined by its adherence to certain economic principles of the free market. And one of them, ever since the mid to late 20th century, has been austerity politics and privatization. I remember saying in another video that the reason that you should vote for liberals over the far right, but neither option is very good, is because the far right are still liberals. They're just liberals that are also extremely fucking racist and like xenophobic and homophobic, you know? So the far right in France economically is behaving basically the way that Macron's party, the centrist party, would behave, except they also hate immigrants and are like overtly anti-green and hate Muslims and hate queer people. It's straightforwardly a downgrade to what was already a bad political platform. You know? I think this, like, that could be a good thing to refer back to. So, guys, remember, when you think of the far right, their populism shtick is completely phony. They're identical to liberals in economics. All the things that you could feasibly be populist about, they are the same as liberals. They just hate migrants and, other brown people and Muslims and queer people. That's it. That was a crazy bounce. What's wrong with you? I'm going to the left one this time. Ah, a mega mushroom. Now again, I think there can be POWs. There can't be shocks. So I think I want to wait for a section where I can maximize the utility of this mega mushroom. So I think I'm going to use it probably here. Yeah. Yo. Haha. I didn't realize he was stopped until I got a bit closer to him, which is why I waited to throw that red shell. Yep, okay, there's a POW. Let me read more of this article. Derrière le discours d'un projet de rupture par rapport au budget proposé par le gouvernement Barnier, le RN reste en réalité sur la même logique libérale, saupoudrée de mesures démagogiques. I keep tripping over that word. When I read this article the first time, I tripped over that word as well. Et de marqueurs de leur idéologie d'extrême droite. So, following the discourse of a project of rupture in the proposed budget, I believe this means like a breaking point between them and somebody else. I don't know. Regarding the budget proposed by the Barnier government. Barnier is the right-wing deputy who is now the prime minister of France. That they're saying here, let's see, this corner, and then the RN, the far right party, is staying at the same liberal logic, peppered with demagogic rhetoric, I think. No, demagogic measures, they say. Okay. And markers of far-right ideology. So basically, the article is saying the same thing that I did. Like, yeah, you know, the far right has proposed their budget. They've had the opportunity to plan a budget, and it is full of austerity liberalism and all sorts of other far-right markers, which basically indicates that they are just liberals, but worse. You know, like, that's all they are. Shit. I see. So if ever you're like engaging with the politics of lesser evilism, if you ever come into a situation where you're forced between two bad options, you know, in this case being far right and liberals, liberals are always the less bad option. Because the far right are just liberals, except worse. That's what makes them the far right. You know, they wouldn't be the far right if they weren't liberals. You know? Because reactionism takes on a more liberal seeming character in a liberal system, right? Reactionaries, fascists, you know, the politics of reactionism in a modern liberal system are not feudalist, they are not monarchist, they are liberal. They simply employ a idealist liberal logic to race, ethnicity, and other social politics that liberals don't necessarily. You know? They still support austerity. They still support a free market in all the ways that hurt you. You know, like I said, fascism is a strict downgrade to liberalism as an ideology, but the two are fundamentally very similar. I guess the easiest way to think of it, the easiest and most comedic way for me to frame fascism as an ideology and to illustrate what I'm talking about is that if you take liberalism and now imbue it with extremely racist spite, like fascism is just liberalism, but you're constantly thinking of getting cucked by a black guy. That's all it is, essentially. And, you know, depending on what country you're in, what's the majority ethnicity in a given country and who's a minority, you can replace black guy with a guy of any other race or ethnicity as the politics of the region dictate. But it's, you know, yeah. I think I've made the point. And of course, the point of this segment, or this might not even be a segment. The point of this little bit of stream where I talk about this was to toot my own horn about how I was right about this. As you guys should, you know, you guys should believe me, trust me, bro, but real. Because you'll see examples of this frequently borne out in the real world. You'll see it with the, you know, the far right party in France is just a very blatant and open example. You'll see this with the Republicans in the United States. You'll see this with the conservatives in Canada. You'll see this all over the place. Anyway. Now for something a little bit more fun. Colors. I like colors. They're cool. It's too bad I'm also colorblind. It's a crying shame, I know. I'm not very severely colorblind, so I can still see color fine for the most part. I just get confused between green and orange sometimes. But color pertains to politics, believe it or not, because, you know, usually political parties will have a given color that represents them. And the reason this came up, the reason I was thinking about this is just because it was like a couple of Google searches and like Wikipedia read-throughs that I did a little while ago, spurred on by volunteering and sort of wondering why, like, why is the Democratic Party blue when they're the more left-wing party, even though, like, usually left-leaning parties are represented by red or pink, or something like that. Or sometimes purple as well. And then, like, you know, are there any other parties like that? That's actually what I wondered as well. One of the things I was wondering as I started Google searching stuff is, like, are there any other parties like the Democrats that are more left-leaning than their other contemporaries, but are instead represented by blue rather than red? Or something like that. And I found some interesting results to that effect. So, in the United States, the Democrats are blue, and they are the left-leaning party, and the Republicans are red, and they are the right-leaning party, which is unusual. But, first off, it wasn't always like that. The Democrats, first of all, used to be more right-wing before the party switch, but even after the party switch, where you have the Democrats as the more left-leaning party, you know, the social liberalism and social democracy, i.e. they're not racist, and then the Republicans are racist, you know, up until, I believe, the 1980s, the Democratic Party was represented by the color red. You can look at electoral maps from the 1970s and 80s. For example, Reagan versus Carter and Reagan versus whoever the Democratic nominee was in 84, I forget. And the Republican states were blue rather than red, and the Democratic states were red rather than blue, because red is the color of left-wing movements and labor, and, you know, socialism as well, but, you know, we're not talking about socialism directly right now, we're just talking about left-right in relative terms in a given country, which is typically how the colors of a given party are decided, right? So that was interesting. I still don't know why the colors switched around. You know, what that really had to do with, if anything. I don't know if it was just like a kind of spurious association at the time. Maybe it could have been as simple as one news outlet that was really prominent decided to represent the Democrats as blue and the Republicans as red, just as a sort of random pull of a name from a hat or whatever. Just cuz. Like, why not? And then that just kind of stuck. Like, that could be it. I don't know. But yeah, sometime after the party switch, there was also the party color switch. And so it is what it is now. And I wanted to actually look for, are there any other political parties that are like that? Because usually, like I said, conservative parties and far-right parties are typically blue. Or sometimes they'll be brown or black. I know there are some parties in Europe that are represented by black or brown that are far-right. But a lot of times you'll see blue as well. And I want to know, are there any other blue-colored parties that are left-leaning? There actually is one. The Bloc Québécois is represented by light blue, one of the colors of Quebec, and they have a social democratic platform. They are comparatively left-leaning, relative even to the Liberal Party in quite a few respects, and they're certainly to the right, to the left, excuse me, of the Conservatives in Canada, but they're represented by light blue. And I was like, oh wow, that's cool. But for the most part, I don't think I really saw much in the way of like, oh yeah, this is a left-wing party, but it's blue. Or this is a right-wing party, but it's red. That's not super common. I think there might have been an example in Austria where one of the right-wing or far-right parties was represented by the color red. But that's kind of it. It is also worth mentioning another major color that you don't see in the United States is yellow. Yellow is usually used to represent liberal parties. It's sort of the color of centrism in a couple ways. Like in France, Macron's party is represented by the color yellow. In Germany, the FDP, the Free Democratic Party, which is a liberal party, is represented by yellow. Same in the Netherlands. I think there are a couple liberal parties in the Netherlands that are represented by yellow. Similar thing in Sweden and in various countries like that. Sometimes you'll see purple, too, as a centrist color. Purple can be used actually for any part of the political spectrum, from what I've seen. But I've most commonly seen it used with social democratic parties. Like, I think in Spain and Portugal, maybe? Definitely France. And then in Canada, you have the crank far-right Freedom Party, which uses the color purple, which is... I think it's kind of like an exception that proves the rule, if that makes sense. Oh, not quite. I was actually going for the Gusto. I wanted to get first with that. Oh. Well, I can do this. What? I feel like my drift didn't come out at the point where I really wanted it to. Ow. I got bumped as fuck. Well, I hit him. That's cool. They still want to dance. Shoutouts to them. They're being a good sport about this whole thing, and I'm dead. What did I see? I saw a diamond, a club, and a spade, I think, is what they had in their username. Also, I have the bullet bill. I hope nobody has... Yo, what's up? Oh, no, it was a star, a heart, and a spade. Okay, okay. I see. They probably have the shock. I'm going to wait till after the cannon, probably, to use this, and I'm operating off the assumption that they have the shock. I'm just going to... Oh, they don't have it. They had a star. Well, they might have gotten the shock there. Hey, what's up? I know this guy. Or maybe. I don't know for sure. My item roulette is being funky. I pressed L a million times. Big item box. Oh, for a second I actually forgot what place I was in. I'm in third. Huh. Alright. This is a good spot for me to be in, I think. Get that banana out of there. Ah, not a good spot. I missed that item. Thanks for the bump, actually. I'll take third, sure. Triple Shroom saved me right at the end. Here, let's go back and look at colors of political parties. Bad news, the American elections are on my birthday. Oh no, your birthday is November 5th? Let's hope Trump doesn't win the... Well, nobody's going to win the election on your birthday, right? Because like I mentioned earlier, because of the way voting works now, because there's more early voting and voting by mail and stuff like that, votes take longer to count. So the election itself is going to happen on November 5th. But the results probably won't be completely clear for a couple days after that. So it's likely the election won't be called, it won't be finished. A winner won't be decided until like November, potentially as late as like November 9th or 10th. The day the world ended or the day of the Republican Rebellion. Ah, yeah, here we go. Here's that article that I was thinking of earlier. Political color. This track is going to be rough. Only got one low trick, which is unfortunate, and I hit that thwomp. My reactions, my inputs have not quite been there today. Despite that, though, I am still somehow in second place, because I guess everybody's getting mauled attempting the shortcut behind me. I'm gonna chuck this here. And I'm gonna use this here. More so probably to put space between me and third place than to really advance me towards first. I think unless there's a blue shell, first place runs away with this. Which, I mean, is Bowser Castle 3, so it's safe to assume there's probably going to be a blue shell. But you never know. Yeah, okay, there's a blue shell. Couldn't last. Oh, shit! This is actually the best outcome. I'm still in second. Get this fake item box out of there. Yes! Good item. Man. I'll just hold on to these. I mostly threw that for fun. Starheart Spade, you can have first. I'm not trying to take that. You know, it's Bowser Castle 3, and there's only been one blue shell. I feel like there's gonna be another one. And I don't want to... I don't really feel like risking that. Or they could just drive off the edge and let me take first. Oh. Somebody did the shortcut. That's good for me. And I'm in first now, which means I'm going to be sweating pretty bad. Oh, thank God. Take first, yes. Save me from these blue shells. Except now, don't. Okay. Very silly ending. God, you have no idea how tempting it was for me to make the title of the stream, It's True Dover. But I realized, like, no, I don't want to do that. The federal elections in Canada aren't happening until 2025, so I can't do that for another year. Fucking goofy-ass country. Doesn't have elections in a year that ends with 4. That's crazy. Anyways. I'm voting for Mario Raceway as long as there's like 8 or more people in the room. That track is sick. Okay. There's one topic that I wanted to talk about that's a little bit more serious than just, hey, look, I was right. The far right are basically the same as liberals, just more racist and more homophobic, etc. Oh, they're doing the Troy Strat. I wish I was so cool that I remembered that, but I didn't remember. But now the topic I wanted to talk about more seriously is voting. I've mentioned elections a couple times this stream. Elections are a decently big fixture of my channel just because that's easy content for politics. But a lot of people, well, I say a lot, a handful of people have actually asked me, why is voting the way that it is in the United States? 1v3, I believe you asked me this even at one time, and I think I've answered this question, but it might be a good idea to make a segment out of it, and I think that's what I'm going to do here. Voting in America is a very bizarre and kind of complicated thing. I'm going to first explain how voting works, at least in my state, because it actually varies from state to state. And then I will explain why voting is the way it is. So in America, in order to vote, you need to be 18. You know, pretty simple so far. But that doesn't mean that when you turn 18 that you'll be able to vote. No, what you have to do is you have to go to a government office, either the registrar, which I believe is at the courthouse. You can go to the registrar, the courthouse, or the Department of Motor Vehicles, basically the same place where you get your driver's license in order to register to vote. You have to sign up to vote. And if you don't do that, then you can't vote. Even if you're 18 and you're a citizen and you fill out like all the other requirements to be able to vote, if you haven't registered, then you can't vote. Right? From there, you have to register. That takes some time to process administratively, and then you're allowed to vote. What changes? Video sound in DC fits great, but at least first finish your story. Yeah. So once you're registered to vote, then you can vote in an election. But because this is the United States, you don't always get to vote like with a mail ballot. You can't just get a ballot and send it by mail. In Virginia, recently, you can do that. What I did was, since I was in college when I came of age to vote, I requested what's called an absentee ballot, so I can vote outside of where I live, but still have it count for where I live. But you had to have a reason to do that. In some states, you still can't just request a ballot so that you can send it in through the mail. You have to go to a polling place on election day, usually a library or a school, some kind of public building. You have to show up there in person on the day of, and it's just that one day, and vote. And you don't get the day off from work. You have to take the day off. And that's only if your employer lets you. It is possible in the United States for you to request election day off and your employer say no, and for you to get fired for trying to vote. You know, like if you take the day off anyway. You know? And on top of that, on top of some of the chicanery I've already described, the biggest kicker is that in certain states like Pennsylvania, like North Carolina, like Ohio, some prominent examples, a lot of people live in these states. If you miss an election, if you voted in, let's say, 2012, or like even this year, if you voted in 2024, but in 2026 you didn't know there was some elections happening, or you just didn't care that much, and you decided not to vote, they can take you off of the voter registration list. They can deregister you to vote, and you'll have to register again. This is happening now, and it has happened at various points in the past, where tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, in Texas, even millions of people at a time were removed from the voter rolls, oftentimes just because they had like the same last name as somebody else, or for some very trivial reason, without any real like substantive suspicion. But you don't really need that if you're in government and in a position to remove people's names from the list. All that matters is that, like, pretty sure this is the same person as this, so I'm going to remove their name from the list. Or they didn't vote last election, so we're going to count them as an inactive voter and remove them from the list, right? That can happen. And they don't tell you when they do this. If you get deregistered, nobody tells you. You have to figure it out, which has led to a number of incidents as well, where people have gone to the polls on election day, tried to vote, and they said, oh yeah, sorry, you're not registered, even though they had registered, like maybe when they turned 18 or maybe several years prior, but they missed an election, so they got taken off of the list. Is that worse for Republicans or Democrats? Like, Republicans struggle more with this shit? That's part of the punchline. I'll get to that in a second, but that is a very valid question to ask. So there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong even outside of just being at the polls and voting. But even when you get to the polls, it's not guaranteed, because the government can decide to close polling places on election day with no warning. If this sounds like some shit that happens in like third world countries, that's because it is. In 2022, during the Brazilian presidential election, there was a lot of controversy because the Brazilian military was aligned with the far right and started blocking roads, blockading buildings, and shutting down buildings where you were supposed to go to vote. In the United States, it's perfectly legal to close buildings and even remove mailboxes from street corners and stuff like that, so people can't vote. And now the big kicker. Why is it like this? Why are there so many obstacles to people voting? Why is it so like difficult and complicated to vote? Why can so many things go wrong so easily that can prevent you from voting? And that is because Republicans want to win. And Democrats don't care that hard about pushing them to lose. The only reason that voting in the United States is as complicated and difficult as it is because the Republicans are fucking racist and don't want black people to vote. Because when more people vote, the Democrats tend to win and the Republicans tend to lose. So, in order to sort of guarantee their own viability in a way that doesn't require having an actual, like, good policy platform, Republicans simply introduce a bunch of measures that would enable them to do stuff like remove polling places, strike people's names from the list, and remove mailboxes and stuff like that. And that's not even to mention, I said, removing people's names from the voting list. Frequently, this has even been revealed by Republican officials, the way that they determine who to remove from voting lists is to see who has a last name that sounds ethnic. If somebody has a Hispanic or black-sounding last name, or if their zip code is in a poor area, they are more likely to get removed from the voting lists. And that is by design. It is literally just because the system is literally just anti-democratic, because if it were democratic, Republicans would lose, and since they're in power, they're trying to keep it undemocratic in order to win. Thankfully, because I vote in every single election, this has not yet affected me. But it has affected a lot of people. Like I said, it's part of the reason why Republicans are still viable at all, because they engage in a lot of voter suppression tactics. They literally prevent people from voting in ways that aren't illegal. And sometimes even in ways that are illegal. in Texas, there have been a lot of voter intimidation campaigns against groups that do what's called get out the vote. You know, they'll register people to vote who aren't yet registered but who are eligible, and stuff like that, in order to prevent people from voting. They'll use state force. They will call the police on people, on activists, to intimidate them, knowing full well that it's illegal, but that they'll face no punishment. That is the state of voting in America. Why you gotta make me even more worried about the possibility of Trump winning? I can assuage your fears in a moment, but before I do that, I want to round out this segment, right? The only reason that voting is so difficult in America is because one of the political parties in power is really fucking racist and doesn't want black people to have political power. And it doesn't want brown people to have political power, doesn't want workers to have political power. Hell, there's an entire, baked-in component of the American electoral system, the Electoral College, that was straightforwardly designed to protect property rights at the expense of democratic institutions. The entire reason the Founding Fathers outlined this directly when they wrote the justification for the Electoral College is we can't have a democracy because that would threaten the interest of property owners. That would threaten the interests of farmers and homesteaders. So they gave weight to states that have less population. That's why the Senate exists. That's why the Electoral College exists. It is a straightforwardly anti-democratic thing that was designed to subvert the popular vote, a very democratic method of deciding policy. Even in the face of all that, Trump, I don't think, stands very much of a chance of winning the election by legitimate means. In order to win the election, hell, Texas is known to be like a Republican stronghold by many people. It's not as Republican as people think. That's, in fact, why Republicans have to commit such campaigns of voter intimidation, voter suppression, throwing away people's ballots, legitimate ballots, throwing away people's names from the voter lists, because if they don't do that, they're gonna lose, guaranteed. A lot of red states that are like Texas or Ohio, they wouldn't be red states if Republicans didn't cheat so hard. Republicans wouldn't be viable if the popular vote were the deciding factor in presidential elections, in federal elections. The Republicans would never win the presidency if it weren't for the Electoral College. That's like every election where the Republican has won, except for, I believe, 2004. Like, the Republicans have not won the popular vote in a American election since at least the late 1980s. It has been more than 30 years since the Republicans won the popular vote, except for maybe 2004. I could be misremembering there. Even Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump when she lost that election. It was impressive that it was as close as it was, but even still, she won the popular vote. So yes, to recap, voting in America is a really dumb and convoluted process that puts a lot of the onus on the voter rather than, the state, the thing with all the resources to determine whether or not somebody is eligible to vote. And the only reason that it is that way, the only reason that the voting system in America is so Byzantine, is because that protects property interests, and it is beneficial to the right wing from the perspective of not enfranchising minorities. That's the only reason that voting is as difficult as it is, and that is the only reason that the Electoral College exists. There is no good reason for it. Structural functionalists in shambles. That's the only reason that this election is even close to begin with, because there are so many ways in which the popular vote can be negated or subverted, right? If Republicans will also comment like crazy on this segment, we'll have proof that Republicans equals Nazis. Well, Republicans haven't liked democracy for a very long time. It's not something you really need proof of. You can go back to discourse from the mid 2000s to early 2010s, And whenever somebody brings up the popular vote or the electoral college, Republicans are strangely adamant that America is not a democracy, which descriptively might be correct in some senses, but is prescriptively very revealing because conservatives are not smart enough to square the contradiction of the is versus ought fallacy. Whenever Republicans or conservatives say something is XYZ, that's because that's the way they want it to be. So yeah, Republicans were anti-democratic even before their turn towards outright Nazism, but now especially, it's gone past the whole bit of, oh, this is a republic, not a democracy. And now it's gotten to the territory of, yeah, no matter what, if we lose the election, we're just going to challenge the results. The election can only be legitimate if we win. That's kind of the tier of talking points they're engaging in. But at the risk of rambling for too long, I think I want to sort of end it there. Hopefully, I know that this is a question that gets asked often from like the European perspective because voting makes a lot more sense outside of the United States, to varying degrees. Hoping the Republicans will be as entertaining as the Nazis that commented on your vid on Germany. Well, I'm not going to read their comments either way, so they'll be talking at a black box. But yeah, that's the segment. American voting, once again, very Byzantine. And the only reason that it is so Byzantine is so that property interests can be more effectively protected from democracy. This is one of the essential features of a bourgeois democracy, of a liberal democracy. You can't have things actually be too democratic, because if they're democratic enough, people start to attack the foundations of capitalism. They start to attack the foundations of a business hierarchy where some people get to autocratically own and control all the resources, and Republicans also hate racial minorities who tend to be more to the left and not as friendly to right-wing interests. So that's why it is the way it is. Maybe not the 100% most coherent that all my segments have ever been, but, hopefully some people learn from that. And now, cut the segment, for real. But anyways, sorry, that took me quite a while. Green Weebo 38, welcome to chat. Your dog is a poopy head. I don't have a dog. Not anymore, at least. So I think that message is intended for somebody else. He long gone? Yeah, probably. Look, yeah. Just to let him know that I saw him. This track is, you can definitely tell it's from Mario Kart Tour. Or like one of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC packs. Also, getting low air there really helped me. I don't know what that can mean, but guessing it's their quote. Yeah, I don't know what that means either. I don't know if it meant that somebody else was calling my dog a poopy head, my dog that I don't have. Sure. All right. I might go for like one more race. Maybe. Sure. Oh yeah, I didn't even mention during that whole spiel. I didn't mention this because it's again, it's a state by state thing, and in Virginia, you don't need this. There's also a thing called voter ID. In some states in the United States, you can go through all the hoops for voting. You can register. You can do, you can show up on time. You can make sure that like you've got your early ballot or whatever. Um, and if you don't have a literal specific ID card for voting, then you're not allowed to vote. You can have a valid driver's license. You can have a valid passport. You can have a valid social security ID. But there are some states where they require a voter ID card in order for you to vote. And the reason that they do that, again, is because, sure, everybody maybe could get a voter ID card, but not everybody can. And thus, not everybody will. You know? It's just the all of the obstacles to voting in America are just for the sake of being obstacles to voting. Because when participation is higher in a democratic system, when things are more democratic, things tend to get less racist, and property rights tend to be less protected from the masses who want to, well, democratize said property. You know, that's why that exists. But yeah, in some states it is literally as ridiculous of, yeah, if you don't have this literal specific ID card that allows you to vote, even if you're a citizen and have registered to vote, you can't vote. Gotta go. See you later. See ya. This will be the last race either way, so I'll probably sign off soon enough. Ah, poor Roblox, man. Talking shit and getting hit. What's up? You're not gonna like this. Hey, there we go. Gave him a little bit of time. He slowed down, let me pass. Oh, wow. I got him from the side there? It's kind of crazy. Okay. I think I know where I want to use this. I think I know where I want to use these two, but the shock could happen at any moment. Kind of disconcerting. No. I might have taken his box. Yeah. Guess not. And I win. On one of my favorite custom tracks. This has been a good session. I think I played well. Don't know how well I talked, but I played well. Alright, let's get on out of here. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Hee. Alright. Thus concludes October 20th. Yeah. Thus concludes the live stream. That was nice. Let's go find somebody who is live that I can raid. Brian F. is watching CPT. Cody Schwab is playing Rivals of Ether 2. Sure, let's raid Cody Schwab. My main man. Yes. All right. Have fun over at Cody Schwab. A lot of my streams leading up to the election are likely not going to contain all too much in terms of numerous political segments, just because, like I said last stream, we're all waiting pretty much for the election with bated breath. So, who knows what all I'm going to have to talk about next time. But enjoy Cody Schwab in the meantime.